In a village nestled in the heart of a fertile valley, Nalia's laughter once rang like a bell. She was beloved by all for her warmth, her diligence, and the way her eyes seemed to carry the sunlight itself. When she married Juma, a man with sharp wit and an even sharper business sense, it was as if the universe had conspired to bring together two destined souls. Juma was a trader, known for his uncanny ability to turn a profit even in the leanest seasons. His stall at the bustling market was always busy, and he often returned home with bags of grain, bolts of bright cloth, or little trinkets for Nalia. Their home, though modest, was filled with the joy of shared dreams. Every morning, Nalia would rise early to prepare a meal before Juma set off for the market. He would kiss her forehead and thank her for her efforts, his touch gentle, his words kind. In the evenings, they would sit under the baobab tree outside their house, sharing stories and laughing until the stars came out. Life felt like a song. Each day, a new verse in their symphony of love. But as the elders of the village often said, the river of life is never calm for long. The first blow came as a whisper, rumors of a rival trader selling goods at lower prices. Juma brushed it off, confident in the loyalty of his customers. But then the whispers turned to shouts. The rival was not only undercutting Juma's prices, but also offering better quality wares. Bit by bit, Juma's once thriving stall emptied. With fewer customers came fewer profits. The household tightened its belt, and the trinkets Juma once brought home were replaced by somber silences. The lively evenings under the baobab tree grew quieter, and Juma's gaze often wandered into the distance, searching for solutions that never came. When his savings dwindled to nothing, Juma turned to borrowing. At first he borrowed from friends and fellow traders, promising to repay them once he bounced back. But the debts piled up, and soon even his closest allies refused to lend him another coin. The pressure mounted, and Juma began spending his days at the local bar. At first, it was just a drink or two to clear his mind, he told himself. But those drinks turned into nights of drunken stupor, a cycle that Nalia couldn't stop no matter how hard she tried. Juma, you can't solve our problems like this, she pleaded one night as he stumbled through the door, reeking of alcohol. We can face this together. Let's think of another way. But Juma didn't listen. His replies grew curt, then cruel. What do you know about my burdens? Do you think it's easy to watch everything I build crumble to dust? The first slap came after an argument over money. Nalia stood frozen, clutching her stinging cheek, shocked that the man who once held her so tenderly could raise his hand against her. The slaps turned to punches, the harsh words to humiliating insults. Juma would return home late, dragging his anger with him, and Nalia became his outlet. On some nights he forced himself on her, ignoring her tears and cries for him to stop. Still, Nalia held on to hope. She tried talking to him during his moments of clarity, when the alcohol had yet to dull his senses. Juma, she whispered one morning, as he sat rubbing his temples, nursing a hangover. You're not the man I married. Where is the man who promised to stand by me? Where is the man who once loved me? For a fleeting moment she thought her words had reached him. His shoulders slumped, and his voice was heavy with guilt. I don't know, Nalia, he murmured. I feel like I'm drowning. But by sunset, he was back at the bar, drowning his sorrows in drink instead of confronting them. The cycle continued, each day heavier than the last. After months of enduring Juma's wrath, Nalia's hope began to wane. The bruises on her body faded with time, but the scars on her soul deepened with each passing day. She couldn't keep living this way. Her spirit felt crushed, her joy a distant memory. She decided she needed to speak to someone who could help. One early morning, when the rooster's crow marked the beginning of a new day, Nalia packed a small bag and set off for her parents' home in a neighboring village. Her heart was heavy, but she was determined to find solace and a way out of her misery. Her mother greeted her with surprise at the door. Nalia, my child, what brings you here so suddenly? She asked, her hands still dusted with flour from kneading bread. Nalia stepped inside and sat with her parents, her father's stern eyes scanning her face. She hesitated at first, but then the words spilled out like water from a broken dam. She told them everything, Juma's drinking, his violence, the way he treated her as less than a human, and the unbearable pain she endured night after night. Her mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, while her father's expression darkened. Nalia thought for a moment that she had found refuge, that her parents would surely rescue her from this nightmare. But her father's voice was cold when he finally spoke. "You cannot leave him, Nalia. Divorce is not an option." Nalia's eyes widened in disbelief. "What do you mean, father? You heard what I said. He beats me. He humiliates me. He forces himself on me. And what will people say?" Her father interrupted, his tone sharp. "That our daughter abandoned her husband when things became difficult. Do you want to bring shame to this family?" Her mother, though visibly shaken, nodded in agreement. "Marriage is a sacred bond, my dear. It is not meant to be broken. You must endure. Speak to Juma again. Perhaps he will change. But to leave him, that would disgrace us all." Nalia's heart shattered anew. "So my life is worth less than your reputation?" she asked, her voice trembling with anger and sorrow. Her father's gaze did not falter. A good wife supports her husband, even in hard times. "If you cannot fix this, let Juma be the one to end it. But you cannot initiate a divorce. That is final." She left her parents' home feeling more alone than ever, her hope replaced by a growing resentment. When Nalia returned to her home, she found Juma sprawled on the floor, an empty bottle of palm wine by his side. The sight of him, reeking of alcohol and oblivious to the world, filled her with a mix of pity and disgust. That night, as he sobered up, she confronted him again. "My parents said I can't leave you," she began, her voice steady. "But they didn't say you couldn't leave me. Please, Juma, let me go, divorce me, and we can both start fresh." Juma looked at her, his bloodshot eyes narrowing. "Divorce you, so you could parade around the village telling everyone what a terrible husband I am." His voice rose with each word. "Do you think I'll let you shame me like that? You'll stay here, Nalia, and you'll keep your mouth shut." Before she could react, his hand struck her, sending her reeling backward. The familiar sting was nothing compared to the ache in her heart. That night, as he forced himself on her yet again, something inside Nalia snapped. The next morning, while Juma snored loudly in their bed, Nalia walked to the village healer's hut. The healer, an older woman named Mama Abani, eyed her with concern. "You look troubled, child. What can I do for you?" "I need something to make a man sleep deeply," Nalia said, her voice low. Mama Abani hesitated. "What do you plan to do?" "Nothing to harm him," Nalia lied. "I just need peace for a little while." The healer handed her a pouch of herbs. "Mix this with food or drink. It will work, but be cautious." That evening, Nalia prepared Juma's favorite stew. She added the herbs and stirred them in carefully, her hands steady despite the storm raging in her heart. When Juma stumbled in, drunk as always, he demanded his food. "You're too slow," he barked as she placed the bowl before him. Nalia said nothing. She watched as he ate greedily, oblivious to the bitterness she had added to his meal. When he finished, his eyes grew heavy, and soon he was slumped over, fast asleep. With a strength she didn't know she possessed, Nalia dragged him to the bed and tied his wrists and ankles with strips of cloth. She sat beside him, waiting for the dawn, her heart pounding but her resolve unshaken. When Juma finally stirred, his confusion quickly turned to fear as he realized he couldn't move. "Nalia," he stammered. "What is this? What are you doing?" She stood over him, her voice cold and unyielding. "You think you are powerful, Juma. You think you can hurt me without consequence. But look at you now. You didn't even notice what I put in your food. You're too drunk to see anything, too blind to realize the damage you've done." She recounted every act of cruelty, every moment of pain he had caused her. Juma pleaded, tears streaming down his face, but Nalia remained unmoved. That night, the tables turned, and Juma learned what it felt like to be powerless, to be at the mercy of someone stronger. The nightlight filtered through the cracks in the thatched roof, casting long shadows across the room. Juma lay tied to the bed, his once proud demeanor now replaced with trembling fear. Nalia stood over him, her expression unreadable, her voice steady but cold as she spoke. "Do you know what you've done to me?" she asked, her voice laced with a mix of anger and sorrow. "Do you know what it's like to be treated like nothing? to be struck, humiliated, and used like an object. I thought the man I married still existed somewhere inside you, but I was wrong. Juma stammered, his voice weak. Nalia, I am sorry. I'll change, I promise. Just untie me. Let's talk. Nalia laughed bitterly, shaking her head. You've had chance after chance, Juma. Each time I spoke to you, I hoped you would hear me, but you didn't. You ignored my pain, my tears, my cries for help. You turned me into a prisoner in my own home. As she spoke, Juma's pleas grew louder, more desperate, but Nalia was unmoved. Her voice grew firmer as she detailed the pain he had caused her. The night she cried herself to sleep, the moments when she felt completely stripped of her dignity. You took everything from me, she said. So tonight you will understand what that feels like. Ignoring his protests, Nalia did the unthinkable. She forced herself on him, taking from him what he had so often taken from her without consent. For Juma, the experience was shattering. The fear, the humiliation, the helplessness. It all crashed over him in waves, stripping away the facade of power he had wielded so ruthlessly. He realized, perhaps for the first time, the depth of the harm he had inflicted. When she was done, Nalia stepped back, breathing heavily. Juma was silent, his face pale and wet with tears. His spirit was shattered, his pride crushed. He no longer looked like the man who had towered over her, lording his strength and anger. Instead, he looked small, broken, and deeply ashamed. This is the last time I will endure your cruelty, she said, her voice cold and resolute. You will divorce me, Juma. If you don't, I will tell the entire village what happened here. How will you hold your head high then? Juma's eyes widened in terror. The thought of his reputation crumbling, of becoming the subject of ridicule, paralyzed him. He knew Nalia was serious. The fear of public humiliation outweighed even his anger and pride. I'll do it, he whispered. Just don't tell anyone. A week later, Juma made the arrangements to end their marriage. He approached Nalia's parents first, presenting the divorce as his own decision to avoid suspicion. Her father, though displeased, accepted the outcome. Nalia was finally free. For Juma, the weeks that followed were a harsh reckoning. The man who once held power over his wife now found himself powerless. He stopped drinking, too afraid of the memories that alcohol might stir. He began taking on small jobs, hauling goods for traders, repairing tools to rebuild his life. Though his body worked tirelessly, his spirit was weighed down by guilt and the constant fear that Nalia might still expose him. Nalia, on the other hand, began a journey of healing. She moved to a neighboring village, far from the whispers and judgments of her past. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of peace. She surrounded herself with kind and supportive people who saw her worth and encouraged her to rediscover her strength. In time, Nalia began to rebuild her life. She joined a local market, selling handmade baskets and fabrics she had learned to craft during her marriage. Her work was meticulous, and soon she became known for her skill. The earnings allowed her to live comfortably, and she finally experienced the independence she had longed for. One day, while selling her goods at the market, Nalia met a man named Musa. He was a farmer who came to sell his harvest, and his kind eyes and gentle demeanor immediately set him apart. Unlike Juma, Musa treated Nalia with respect and curiosity, valuing her thoughts and opinions. But Nalia, now wiser, did not rush. She spent months getting to know Musa, observing how he treated others, listening to his stories, and sharing her own. She made sure that this time, her heart would not lead her astray. When Musa eventually asked her to marry him, Nalia felt a warmth she hadn't known in years. Yes, she said, but her answer came with a quiet strength born of her past. She entered this new chapter on her terms, with a heart that had been mended through patience and self-love. Back in her old village, Nalia's story became a cautionary tale whispered among women. They called it the stone that broke the river. It was a reminder that even the gentlest and most patient waters could rise in fury when a stone was cast too deep. Nalia's journey from suffering to freedom inspired others to find their voices and take control of their lives. Her tale stood as a beacon, proving that even in the darkest times, the power to rewrite one's story lies within. As for Juma, he never touched another drop of alcohol, and the memory of what happened that fateful night stayed with him forever. He lived quietly, doing honest work and avoiding the village bar where his downfall had begun. And Nalia, She lived a life of quiet happiness, filled with love, laughter, and a newfound understanding of her own worth. The river of her life, though once turbulent, had finally found its calm. Thanks you so much for watching. I hope you learned some lesson from this tale. Please like this video, share and subscribe to this channel to get more interesting tale. Where are you watching from? It's very important. Comment below where you are watching from, and let's interact. Bye for now.